Hello, my name is Inara. At dawn, my sister kicked down my door, dragged me into the pouring rain, and beat me while my parents sat in the car and watched. But the truth is, that wasn't the first time they erased me. For years, they rewrote our family story, cutting me out of photo albums, stealing the program I created, even switching my grandfather's will. I was the invisible one, the sensitive one, until the night their silence became louder than her fists. What would you do if your own family decided you didn't exist? The house smelled like pot roast and polished wood, the kind of scent that should make you feel safe. Outside, it had been drizzling since morning, a gray mist hanging over Salem like a wet blanket. I stood in the kitchen of my mother's home, well, the home that used to feel like ours, adjusting the final tray of deviled eggs on the buffet table. The paper lanterns I'd strung earlier swayed slightly in the breeze, slipping in through the half-open back door. Vera's party had to be Pinterest-worthy, she said, and I'd made it that way, like always. The guests were arriving in clusters, stepping inside with forced laughs and shaking off umbrellas. I smiled, offered plates, poured wine. I even found a moment to wipe a muddy footprint off the entry rug before Celeste noticed. She hated mess. Everything had to look perfect. Not for her, but for them. For the cousins, the board members, the neighbors who meant something. I heard my name once the entire afternoon, a quick, "Thanks, Inara," from Vera when I handed her a mimosa before her big speech. That was it. From the hallway, I could see Vera standing on the makeshift stage we'd arranged in the living room. The house was filled with people clapping, cheering for her as she announced her promotion to VP of some branding firm that made water bottles look like holy relics. She wore white, of course. Tailored, expensive, radiant. The kind of woman magazines would call effortlessly powerful. Then came the speeches. Her assistant spoke first, then Mom, then Dad, though he said maybe 3 sentences, tops. And finally Vera, who grabbed the mic with the same poise she'd once used to grab my part in the school play when we were kids. She thanked everyone, her colleagues, her mentors, her dog, even the barista at her favorite coffee shop. "Some people just get me," she laughed. "Everyone did too, except me." My smile froze when I saw the printed program. 3 pages, glossy paper, her picture on the cover like a wedding invitation. On the back page, "Special thanks to everyone who made today possible." No mention of my name. Not once. Not even in the fine print. The cake arrived next. Fondant, custom-made, monogrammed. "To the daughter who carries us all." I stood near the kitchen doorway, gripping my plastic champagne flute so tightly it creaked. I'd spent 3 nights making sure that cake arrived on time. Vera had given me the task, of course, and I'd executed it like every other thing she handed me. Invisibly, perfectly. No one looked at me. No one noticed I wasn't clapping. I left the room before the candle cutting. In the kitchen, I sank onto a stool. My hands still smelled like lemon zest and vinegar from prepping the salad dressing. I looked at the dish towels on the counter, folded precisely the way Mom liked them, and thought, if I walked out right now, would anyone follow? That wasn't just self-pity, it was a genuine question. Back home that night, after loading all the leftover potato salad into Tupperware and scrubbing out 2 casserole dishes I'd brought from my own place, I sat down at my dining table and opened my old laptop. I pulled up a folder labeled Family Docs. One subfolder read, Grandpa's House. A month ago, while helping Mom declutter before Easter, I found a yellowing envelope tucked inside one of Grandpa's law books. Inside was a handwritten will. Not the official, notarized document that Vera had been parading around last Thanksgiving. No. This one was older, signed in my grandfather's delicate scrawl, and very clear in its intent. To my granddaughter, Inara, who sat with me in silence, who listened without interruption, who made soup when no one else remembered I hated canned broth. I leave the house, with all its rooms, to her. She sees things the rest of us choose to ignore. I scanned it, saved it, hid the hard copy in my fireproof box. At the party today, Vera had made a little announcement between applause breaks. "We'll be renovating the back patio soon. Now that the house is finally under my name, it's time for upgrades." Celeste stood beside her, clapping. Even Dad nodded in approval. My mouth went dry. They'd changed the will, or ignored the original. Either way, they pretended I didn't matter. And maybe that's what stung most, not the legal theft, but the casual erasure. They didn't even bother lying to my face. I sat alone that night, staring at the folder. The PDF glowed back at me, grainy but legible. I zoomed in on Grandpa's signature. I could almost hear his breathing, slow, wheezy, but steady. As I handed him a cup of lukewarm tea that winter, he slipped on the ice and bruised his ribs. I whispered aloud to the quiet room. They took everything but my silence. That, they'll regret. I clicked print. The document spat out from my dusty cannon like a forgotten relic. I placed it in a plastic sleeve, then slid it under the tray on my nightstand. I didn't sleep much. The rain had picked up again. I counted the drips on the window pane like heartbeats. But I didn't cry. Not yet. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind kept replaying Vera's voice from the party, so smooth, so sure of herself, like every lie she told was just another clever pivot. The room smelled like damp paper and lemon cleaner. I'd cleaned out the sink after coming home, more out of habit than necessity, scrubbing at a spotless counter like I was trying to erase the way her voice sat in my head. It was just after 6 a.m. when I woke again, my eyes already open before the alarm went off. Rain pattered gently outside, same as the day before. Salem had a way of cloaking betrayal in weather that felt too soft for how cold people could be. I reached for my phone and immediately saw the red notification bubble. 37 unread messages. At first, I thought maybe someone had posted pictures from the party and tagged me. Maybe someone noticed I was missing from the program, from the cake message, from the entire event. But then I saw the subject lines. All variations of one thing. Thinking of you. You're in my prayers. Don't take it personally. The kind of things people say when they've picked a side, and it's not yours. The forwarded email came from Aunt Rochelle, no message attached. Just a subject line. For context. I opened it. Vera had sent an email blast to the extended family. The header said, "Family harmony and disruption. Let's talk honestly." Beneath it, her words unfolded like a speech rehearsed for years. She wrote that she'd always tried to be a bridge between personalities, that grief can manifest in divisive behaviors, and that one family member has chosen to weaponize old paperwork to stir distrust and confusion. She never used my name. But she didn't have to. Vera had CC'd our cousins, the uncles from Eugene, the women from Mom's prayer group, even the retired couple who used to babysit us. Toward the end, she added this. It's important to recognize when a loved one is struggling with clarity. We love her, but we can't allow one person's unresolved trauma to poison our unity. I sat there, the phone warming in my palm, the words burning holes in my chest. Within 10 minutes, the texts started coming. Aunt Rochelle again. Sweetheart, you should talk to someone. Vera's just trying to hold the family together. My cousin Jess unfollowed me on every platform. A neighbor from 2 streets over wrote, I know family is complicated. I hope you find peace. Peace? I hadn't gone to war. I'd served dinner. I'd stacked plates, lit candles, arranged hydrangeas for a woman who turned around and painted me as unstable. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I stared at the screen until the battery dropped to 8%, then set the phone face down. By 8 a.m., I'd brewed coffee, stood under a hot shower, and stared at my reflection for 10 full minutes. The towel turban on my head was slipping, but I didn't bother fixing it. Eventually, I dressed and sat at my desk. My apartment was quiet, warm. The soft hum of my space heater filled the silence. I opened my laptop. There was a folder already waiting on the desktop. Contingency plan. I had created it months ago, never really thinking I'd need it. I clicked it open. Inside were copies of Grandpa's original will, time-stamped scans, a note I'd written to myself. If they erase you, leave evidence. I added a new file, screenshots of Vera's email, replies from family, even a screen recording of my text conversation with Mom from the night before. At 10:11 a.m., I called her. She answered on the third ring. Hi, honey. Her voice was measured, too light for what we both knew was coming. Did you see the email? I asked, a pause. Vera's just trying to keep the family from falling apart. I held the phone tighter. She changed Grandpa's will. Let's not rehash that, Inara. It's complicated. It's not complicated, it's theft. Mom sighed. You're overreacting, and this isn't the way to handle it. I waited for her to say more. She didn't. Okay, I said quietly. Good to know. There was no goodbye. Just a click. I sat still for a long time. The heater kicked off. My coffee had gone cold. I pulled out a legal pad from my drawer, scribbled a few lines, scratched them out. Then I opened my email and began drafting a message to someone I hadn't spoken to in a while. Laura, a lawyer I'd met at a library conference last year. She'd given a talk on estate disputes and navigating power imbalances in families. Her card was still tucked in my drawer, underneath a thank you note she'd handwritten. I wrote, Hi Laura, I don't know if you remember me, but we met during the Women in Leadership panel at Salem Central Library last spring. I'm dealing with a complicated family situation involving an altered will, character defamation, and a growing need for legal clarity. I'd appreciate a few minutes of your time, if possible. Warmly, Inara Dufresne. I read it 3 times before clicking send. Then I opened the email thread again, Vera's Poison dressed up in pastel fonts, and began drafting a reply. I was careful, meticulous. I quoted her words exactly. I asked for evidence of her claims. I included my own attachments. Before hitting send, I refreshed the page. Vera's original message had been locked, no longer editable. A new final line had been added. Inara has chosen to remove herself from the family. Let us respect her wishes. My hands clenched into fists, not from anger, but from resolve. They'd drawn the boundary for me, so now I would draw my own. The scent of lavender still clung to the fabric as I folded the blanket and set it on the foot of my bed. The same one I'd planned to drape gently over Mom's shoulders during her hospital stay, if they had let me in. I couldn't shake that final line from Vera's email. Inara has chosen to remove herself from the family. Chosen? Like it was some personal preference, not a consequence of being shut out, shut down, and now physically kept from the woman who birthed me. 2 weeks before the celebration, I got the call. It was a Thursday. I was shelving books in the nonfiction section at the library when my phone buzzed against my hip. Unknown number. I stepped into the back office and answered. Is this Inara Dufresne? Yes. This is Salem General. Your mother, Celeste Dufresne, was brought in this morning after collapsing at her home. She's stable but in ICU. She's been asking for you by name. The nurse's voice was calm, but firm, like she'd said those words 100 times. I didn't ask for details. I just said thank you, scribbled down the room number, and left my cart mid-aisle. I grabbed my tote bag from under the desk and hurried out the side door. On the way to the hospital, I stopped by my apartment just long enough to grab Mom's favorite lavender body lotion and the soft fleece blanket I gave her for Christmas. She used to call it her cloud. I knew she'd want it more than any hospital sheet. By the time I got to Salem General, it was early afternoon. The lobby was quiet, just the low hum of vending machines and a receptionist typing at her desk. I stepped up, breathless. I'm here to see Celeste Dufresne, I said, holding my driver's license out instinctively. The woman checked her screen. Her fingers paused mid-keystroke. I'm sorry, but visitation is currently restricted to immediate authorized family members. I am immediate family, I said, too quickly. Her daughter. Another pause. I understand. I'll need to check with the floor nurse. She picked up the phone. I heard low murmurs on the other end, something about already there and not wanting to escalate. Then she hung up and looked at me with a smile too polite to be kind. Someone will be down in just a moment. 2 minutes later, I saw Vera coming around the corner. She was dressed in a sleek, cream-colored coat, hair pinned back like she was headed to a meeting, not sitting with a sick parent. Inara, she said, as if we were catching up at brunch. I'm here to see Mom. Vera didn't stop walking until she was 2 feet in front of me. She's resting. The doctors don't want her agitated. She asked for me. She was confused, barely conscious. She didn't know what she was saying. I held up the blanket. I brought this. She'll want it. Vera crossed her arms. This isn't the time. Let's not make this harder than it already is. Harder for who? I asked, quieter than I meant to. She didn't answer. Instead, she nodded subtly at a nurse behind the desk. Seconds later, a uniformed man appeared near the elevators. Security? You've got to be kidding me, I muttered. Inara, Vera said, voice low, like a warning. Don't do this here. I looked at the security officer, then back at her. I'm not here to fight. I'm here because she called my name. She needs rest. That's all. And just like that, I was escorted out, not by force, not even with a raised voice, but with the firm, quiet push of someone who'd been told I was a problem. Outside, the rain had started again, fine mist soaking the concrete as I stood near the side entrance, the blanket still in my hands. Through the large ICU windows, I could see rows of beds, monitors blinking like distant stars. Somewhere in there was my mother, hooked up to machines, surrounded by beeping, and, if Vera was telling the truth, confused, half aware. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass, straining to see past the privacy curtains. My reflection stared back at me, blurry and pale. A nurse walking by glanced at me, slowed. Excuse me, I said, quietly. My mom. She's in there. Celeste Dufresne. They wouldn't let me in. She looked at me for a long beat. Then she leaned in and whispered. She asked for her youngest 3 times before she fell asleep. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Back in my car, I sat still for almost an hour. The windows fogged up. I didn't turn the engine on. I didn't listen to music. What was I doing? Why had I kept trying? I had accepted so many small insults, so many moments of exclusion disguised as family dynamics. But this was different. This wasn't a missed thank you or a name left off a program. This was a door locked from the inside, a mother silenced by a daughter too determined to control the narrative. And me? I had walked away. Again. At some point, I opened my phone. The draft I'd been crafting, my careful response to Vera's family-wide email, was still sitting there. 4 paragraphs of restraint, logic, proof. I deleted it. Then I renamed the folder on my desktop. Not contingency plan anymore. Evidence. Phase 1. This wasn't about clarity anymore. This wasn't about being seen. This was about being heard. I drove home, the blanket on the passenger seat beside me like a person. When I got in, I set it at the foot of my bed. The scent of lavender rose gently into the room, as if Mom was still here, breathing beside me. I sat down on the edge of the mattress, stared out the window at the rain, and whispered into the silence. She called for me, and they locked the door in her name. After I folded the blanket and placed it at the end of the bed, I stood there in the stillness of the room for longer than I expected. No music, no distractions, just the soft hum of the heater and the scent of lavender that wouldn't leave. I didn't want it to. It reminded me of what I'd almost had, and what Vera had so easily kept from me. That Sunday morning, rain came down with the same kind of quiet conviction Vera used in her speeches, constant, steady, and unwilling to let up. I padded barefoot to the front door when I heard the mail slot clink open. A padded envelope dropped to the floor. The return address had Ruth's name on it, Mom's cousin from the coast, the one who still called me Baby Bird at Thanksgiving even though I was in my 30s. I carried the package to the kitchen counter and sliced it open with the edge of a butter knife. Inside was a hardbound book wrapped in tissue paper. A note taped to the cover read, Grandma's 80th, family photo album, 1 per household, love, Ruth. A part of me hesitated, but another part, the part still trying to believe I wasn't invisible, flipped it open anyway. The first few pages were expected, black and white wedding photos of Grandma and Grandpa, handwritten captions from different relatives. Then came the childhood section, Vera. Page after page of Vera's life. Her first piano recital, her softball trophies, the time she volunteered at the animal shelter. Pictures of her in Halloween costumes, Vera on vacation, Vera holding a sparkler in her Sunday dress. Mom's face appeared in most of them, smiling like she was standing next to royalty. Dad showed up occasionally, usually stiff in a button-down, looking more like a background actor than a parent. I turned to the high school pages. Celeste's school photos from her early years teaching. A few shots of family barbecues. My uncles, my cousins, all there. I kept flipping, waiting. Finally, there I was, in a blurry photo in the background of Vera's college graduation. I was near the buffet table, apparently mid-blink. The caption underneath read, "Vera and her helper cousin." I blinked, stunned. That was me, not some cousin, me. There was one other picture. I was maybe 12, sitting cross-legged near a fireplace at a holiday party. Everyone else in the photo had their name in the caption. I was just others. It was one thing to feel forgotten. It was another to be deliberately mislabeled. I closed the album, my hands stiff. But I didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, I walked over to the hallway closet and pulled out the storage bin I hadn't opened since last summer. Inside were my old school trophies, the dusty folder of my volunteer certificates from high school, and a copy of the press release I'd written 6 months ago for the community literacy program I started. It came rushing back. How excited I'd been, pitching the idea to the board. I'd proposed that the Dufresne Family Foundation sponsor a reading initiative for underserved teens at the public library. They had all agreed. Mom had even told me she was proud, which was a rare currency. I handled the launch details myself, partnered with local educators, developed the curriculum, everything. But on the launch day, I walked into the event and saw the banner hung across the back wall. Dufresne Literacy Project, led by Vera Dufresne. She was standing at the podium, microphone in hand, with Mom right behind her. I remember walking toward them, waiting for Vera to acknowledge me in the speech. She never did, not once. When I asked Mom about it after the event, she just smiled and said, "You've always been more comfortable behind the scenes, sweetheart. Vera shines. Let her. Let her." That phrase had followed me all my life like a leash. Let her take the lead. Let her handle the press. Let her speak. Let her be the face. Let her pretend it was all hers. I took the photo album, opened it back to the pages I appeared in, and stuck 2 bright red sticky notes on the corners of the photos. Then I pinned them to the corkboard above my desk, not out of pride, but as evidence. Proof that I existed, that I was there, even when no one wanted to remember. Later that afternoon, I called Mom. I didn't even know what I expected to hear. She picked up on the second ring. "Hi, honey." "I saw the album," I said. Pause. "Oh, Ruth sent those out already?" There's a photo of me in the background of Vera's graduation. You know what the caption says? Silence. "Vera and her helper cousin." She exhaled. "Sweetheart, I didn't write the captions." "That's not the point," I said. "And the literacy program? That was mine. You knew it. Vera said you didn't want your name on it, that you get overwhelmed in public settings." "No," I snapped, keeping my voice from shaking. "You didn't want me visible." Another silence. Then flatly, "You're overthinking everything again." I ended the call. No goodbye. No explanations. Back at my desk, I opened my laptop and checked my email. And like the perfect punctuation to my day, there it was. A forwarded message from the board of the nonprofit. Due to internal conflict, Vera Dufresne will retain the lead role in the Dufresne Literacy Project indefinitely. I didn't even get a courtesy BCC. I closed the lid of my laptop. My jaw tightened until it ached. Then I said it out loud to the empty room, my voice low and calm. One more lie, and I will no longer be polite about the truth. So I will. That was the last thing I said before I closed my laptop, walked to the kitchen, and poured myself a glass of water with hands that wouldn't stop trembling, not out of fear, but from the strange combination of fury and clarity that comes only when the last thread finally snaps. It had been less than 24 hours since I told Vera in plain language that I wouldn't stay quiet anymore. No legalese, no apologies, just facts. Her reply, one sentence. "Try it." That night, I left my phone on silent and spent hours going through an old drawer in my bedroom, the one I hadn't opened since Mom's funeral. Inside was a photo of her hands resting on her lap, her wedding ring glinting in the morning light. I'd taken it years ago during a backyard brunch when she was still healthy, still calling me her calm one. She never said it in front of Vera, of course, but I remembered it clearly. The next morning, a voicemail appeared. Dad. Sweetheart, can we talk? Let's just put all this to rest. No mention of what this was. No acknowledgement of the email thread, the photo album, the literacy project, or the missing ring. Just a calm, vaguely paternal tone, as if he were settling a dispute between neighbors about a tree branch. I waited until early afternoon before calling him back. I didn't want to answer in the morning when I was still half tired and more likely to fold. He picked up right away. Hi, honey. Hi, Dad. I'm glad you called. I know things have been difficult lately. Is that what we're calling it now? He chuckled softly. Look, I know you and your sister don't always see eye to eye. She's been stealing credit, manipulating family, and publicly erasing me. And that's a bit more than not seeing eye to eye. There was a pause, then the tone, the one I'd grown up with. Sweetheart, we all make mistakes. Your sister, she's been under a lot of pressure. And your mom, well, she wouldn't want this kind of tension between you two. I could hear him leaning back in his chair, probably in the den, surrounded by dusty books and silence, like always. You know your sister didn't mean to hurt you, he continued. She just gets caught up in, well, you know how she is. I do, I said flatly. This family's been through enough, Inara. We need peace, unity. I nearly laughed. So I should just let her keep rewriting history because it's easier for everyone else? She's not rewriting anything. Maybe you're just being a little sensitive. There it was. That word. It landed in my gut like a brick. Sensitive, I repeated. You've always been the emotional one, he said gently, like he was offering me a compliment. You feel things deeply. And sometimes that makes things harder for you. It's not a flaw, honey. It's just who you are. I sat still, staring at the photo of Mom's hands on the desk beside me. Do you remember what she told me about the ring? I asked. Silence. Because I do. Word for word. Inara. She said, that ring is for you. I want you to have something that's truly mine, not Vera, me. He exhaled into the phone. Your mother wasn't well at the end. You know that. You were there. You heard her say it. She probably said a lot of things. You know how people get near the end, confused, trying to make everyone happy. She wasn't confused, I said, my voice steady. She was trying to leave something behind that Vera couldn't steal. He didn't respond. I let the silence stretch. Eventually, I ended the call without saying goodbye. Afterward, I opened the bottom drawer of my dresser and unlocked the fireproof box where I kept the voice memo. It was an old recording, 2 years before her stroke. We'd been sorting Christmas ornaments in the living room, and I'd been testing out a new app that let you save audio clips and transcribe them. I hadn't meant to record anything meaningful, but the voice note caught it all. That ring is for you, baby. You always notice the small things. Vera has the house and the spotlight. But you're steady. I want you to have something that's just mine. Don't let her take that too. Her voice sounded strong, like it used to, like it remembered me. I played it again, then a third time. Each replay burned the truth a little deeper into me. The next morning, I wrote the email. Subject, formal notice, unauthorized use of family assets. To Vera Dufresne. CC, Dad, Aunt Rochelle, Board of the Dufresne Foundation, Cousin Jess, Ruth, 3 community partners. Body. Effective immediately. Any further unauthorized use of family name, assets, or associated materials connected to the Dufresne Literacy Program, or any personal property designated for me by Celeste Dufresne, will result in legal review and public documentation. This message serves as official notice. All communications should now go through counsel. Inara Dufresne. I reviewed it 3 times. No aggression, no name-calling, just precision. When I hit send, a calm settled over me. For the first time in years, I felt clean. The next day, the reply came, 1 line. Try it. No signature, no pretense. I stared at the screen, let the cursor blink below those two words like a dare. Then I closed the laptop and whispered to myself, "So I will." It had rained all night. Not the dramatic kind, the slow, insistent sort that crept under windows and soaked your bones if you stood still long enough. My apartment was quiet, save for the ticking of the wall clock and the soft creak of wood as the building settled into the early hours. I'd been awake since just after 5 a.m., unable to fall back asleep. I sat at the kitchen table, nursing a lukewarm cup of tea, reviewing the email chain again. Vera's one-line response, "Try it," still lingered like a dare on the screen. My body was tired, but my mind was sharp. I had already lined up legal consultation. Evidence was categorized, recordings saved, dates logged. I wasn't just documenting the past anymore. I was preparing to reclaim my future. The world outside was still dark when I returned to bed, thinking I could squeeze in another hour of rest before sunrise. I hadn't been under the covers more than 10 minutes when a pounding erupted at my front door. Hard, frantic, and unmistakably familiar. My heart jumped. Then, instinct took over. I reached for my phone on the nightstand, swiping quickly to open the voice recording app I kept pinned to the home screen. One tap. The red light blinked. The audio was live. Then came her voice, muffled through the door, but clear. "Inara! Open the damn door!" I didn't move. My pulse pounded in my ears. "I swear, if you don't open this door right now..." I slid my feet into slippers, grabbed my phone, and walked slowly down the short hallway. The rain outside had picked up again, lashing against the building. I flipped the porch light on, careful not to unlatch anything. "Go home, Vera," I said, loud enough to be heard. "You hiding now? After the stunt you pulled? Sending emails to the whole damn family like you're some victim? This is your last warning. Walk away." A beat of silence. Then the crack. The wood splintered at the hinges as she slammed her shoulder into the door. The first blow didn't break it. The second did. The door flew open. The chain lock tore clean off. My body froze, not in fear, but in disbelief. Vera stood there, soaked to the skin in a white trench coat. Mascara streaked under her eyes. She looked unhinged, but controlled, like someone who knew what she was about to do and planned to make it hurt. "You want war?" she said, stepping forward. "Let's go." She grabbed my arm, twisting it. I dropped my phone. The recording kept going. The red light blinked steadily from the floor. She yanked me forward. I tried to resist, but I slipped. Bare feet, wet floor, bad combination. "Let go!" I shouted. She didn't. Her grip tightened. Next thing I knew, I was dragged out into the rain, barefoot and stumbling. She was yelling, but I barely heard it. My focus narrowed on the silver sedan parked at the curb. Inside sat Celeste and Dad, both watching, neither moving. Vera shoved me down onto the lawn. My knees hit the wet grass. I tried to crawl backward, but she came at me again, grabbing fistfuls of my t-shirt. "You think you're better than us now?" she hissed. Rain soaked my hair, ran into my eyes, my mouth filled with the taste of dirt and metal. I didn't hit her back. I didn't scream. I just stared beyond her, straight at my mother through the windshield. Celeste didn't blink. She didn't even roll the window down. "Mom," I said, half whisper, half plea, "this is your legacy." Still, she looked away. Vera let go of me then, not out of mercy, out of disgust. She turned and stormed back toward the car, throwing the soaked coat off in the process. She climbed into the back seat. The sedan reversed down the street and disappeared around the corner without headlights. I sat in the mud until the tremors in my arms stopped. Eventually, I made my way back inside. The door hung sideways, the lock shredded. I shut it best I could and collapsed onto the floor just inside, dripping wet and breathing in slow, shallow bursts. The red light on my phone was still blinking. I picked it up. Timer running, 12 minutes and 28 seconds. I didn't listen to it, not yet. Instead, I walked to the bathroom, peeled off my soaked clothes, and stood under the shower for a long time, letting the water wash away the bruises that hadn't yet bloomed. After I changed into dry clothes and bandaged my wrist, I sat on the couch and opened my laptop. Then I remembered the security camera. My landlord had installed one facing the building entrance last winter after a string of stolen packages. I rarely thought about it, until now. I logged into the tenant portal, entered the timestamp window, and downloaded the footage. It was all there. Vera on the porch. Her foot slamming into the door, me being dragged out into the pouring rain. The car parked. My parents inside. Still. Watching. Every frame, time-stamped. Every scream, recorded. I watched it twice, once with a blank stare, once with a hand clenched so tightly around the mouse I thought it might crack. Then I saved it, backed it up to a hard drive, uploaded a private copy to cloud storage, sat in the darkness of my apartment, staring at the frozen image of Vera walking away, rainwater dripping from her clenched fists. I wasn't just assaulted, I was erased, dismissed, silenced. And now I had proof. The storm hadn't ended, but the wind had quieted, the kind of stillness that settles over a neighborhood just after something ugly happens, when the air doesn't quite know how to move forward. I sat at the small table in my kitchen, towel-dried hair clinging to my shoulders, and stared at the laptop screen still glowing from the footage. I didn't sleep. Instead, I replayed the video again and again, Vera's foot against my door, her hands on my arms, the shove, the fall, and most of all, the car, the figures inside it. My mother, staring straight ahead. My father, still as stone. That's what broke me. Not the bruise on my jaw or the torn shoulder seam. It was the absolute stillness of their faces, the way their silence was louder than her violence. Just after 8 a.m., there was a knock at my door. Soft, measured. For a split second, my body tensed, instinctively recoiling. But this wasn't the heavy pounding from earlier. This was a gentle knock, almost hesitant. I peered through the peephole. Mr. Granger. I opened the door slowly. He stood there in his navy windbreaker, hat tucked under his arm, holding a flash drive in his hand. "I know it's early," he said, voice low, "but I saw what happened." I didn't speak. I just stepped aside and let him in. He walked with slow, careful steps, settling into the armchair near the window like he belonged there. "My porch camera caught everything," he said, holding up the drive. I sat across from him, unsure of what to say. "You helped me 2 years ago," he added. "When I fell on the sidewalk, cracked 2 ribs, you were the only one who stopped." I remembered. I'd been walking home with groceries when I saw him curled up on the pavement outside the coffee shop. I waited with him until the ambulance came, even brought him his mail for a week while he recovered. "This is me returning the favor," he said simply. I reached for the drive, hesitated, then took it. "Thank you," I whispered. He nodded once, then stood. People don't always show who they are until someone's watching. Now, someone is. After he left, I loaded the footage. His camera had a different angle, wider, clearer. You could see Vera pacing before the door cracked open. You could see me being pulled. You could see the car, and the faces. There was no ambiguity. I attached the file to an email to my lawyer. Then I uploaded a backup copy to cloud storage and labeled it Exhibit A, Video. I hadn't planned to share it with the world, not yet, but that wasn't up to me anymore. By noon, the footage had leaked. I don't know who did it. Maybe the lawyer's assistant. Maybe someone at the building who caught wind of it. But by 2 p.m., my name was trending on a small local Facebook group for Salem residents. By 4 I was being tagged in posts, comments, messages from strangers. This is appalling. That woman needs to be in jail. No wonder the youngest daughter left the family. Look at this. Where was the mother during all this? Oh, right, she was watching. The comments came fast and furious. Some from people I knew only in passing. Others I'd never met. By the next morning, a clip had gone viral on TikTok. It showed me being pulled into the rain with the caption, "She warned them. They didn't listen." Vera, of course, didn't stay silent for long. Around noon, she posted a photo on Instagram, one from 2 years ago, a family portrait from Thanksgiving. All of us dressed in coordinated fall colors, smiling with wine glasses in hand. The caption read, "Don't believe everything you see online. Mental illness can twist perception." It was subtle, vague, but sharp. Celeste commented beneath it, "We love all our children equally. Some just need more help than others." That one cut deeper than I expected. It wasn't just dismissive, it was surgical. Researched. Designed to say everything without saying anything. I didn't respond. Not on Facebook, not in comment sections, not even in private texts. Instead, I opened a new folder on my desktop and labeled it. All of it. Inside, I dropped the following. The full email thread between Vera and the extended family. The video footage from both my security camera and Mr. Granger's porch. The scanned original will with Grandpa's signature. The voice memo from Mom about the ring. Screenshots of the nonprofit statement listing Vera as lead. Photos of the photo album captions. Then I opened my email and drafted 3 messages, one to a local reporter I'd met during a library journalism panel, another to a former college classmate who worked at a mid-size news blog, and a third to a friend of a friend who freelanced for a women's magazine. The subject line on all 3 was the same. I have a story to tell, and evidence to back every word. I hit send. That night, I received a message request on Instagram from an account with no profile photo. "Hi, I'm Sophia. I saw what happened. I'm Vera's old friend. You're not alone." I stared at the screen, unsure whether to reply. Then another message came. "She did the same thing to me, years ago. Different face. Same script." I believed it was just me. It wasn't. My chest tightened. Not in panic, but in relief. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't exaggerating. Vera wasn't just my nightmare. She was a pattern. Sophia's message stayed with me long after I read it. I sat still on the couch, the screen glowing dimly in my lap, her words looping over and over. She did the same thing to me, different face, same script. Something shifted in me, not out of vengeance, but recognition. There it was, finally spelled out by someone who owed me nothing. Vera didn't just hurt me. She repeated herself, and people let her, again and again, not this time. The next morning, I met with Laura Delgado, a community rights attorney I'd been corresponding with since the footage leaked. Her office was small, buried in an old brick building across from a bakery. Inside, the smell of lemon pastries mixed with paper and coffee, the kind of aroma that makes you feel seen. I brought everything. The USB drive with the videos, the original scan of Grandpa's will, the screenshot of Vera's email campaign, Mom's voice memo about the ring. The forwarded nonprofit letter, the Facebook comments, all of it. Laura didn't flinch once as she reviewed the files. She asked precise questions. She took notes. When she finished, she leaned back, met my eyes, and said simply, "They erased you. Now you'll erase their lie." That afternoon, Laura helped me draft a press statement. I rehearsed it out loud 3 times in her office. The first time, my voice wavered. The second, it shook. The third, it held. The following day, I stood behind a wooden podium in a borrowed conference room at the Salem Community Center, surrounded by reporters holding microphones and iPhones. Some I recognized from the local paper, others from blogs or news startups that had picked up the viral clip. The room smelled like warm plastic and tension. My hands didn't tremble. Not this time. "My name is Inara Dufresne," I said. "I'm here today because silence has protected the wrong people in my family for too long." I paused. This isn't just my story. This is every woman who's been silenced by her own blood. A quiet fell over the room, the kind of quiet you feel in your chest. I went on to explain, not everything, but enough. The footage, the family's response, the legacy theft, the smear campaign, the ring. I answered every question calmly. When someone asked, "Why go public?" I said, "Because I already tried private," and they locked the door. Vera, of course, refused to appear. Instead, her representative released a generic statement to the press. Ms. Dufresne is saddened by the personal attacks launched by her sister and hopes for healing within the family in due time. No denial, just vagueness wrapped in concern. She knew what she was doing. But by the time I left the center, #Justice for Inara was trending locally. The clip of my speech had already hit 25,000 views. Support messages were flooding my inbox. One woman wrote, "Thank you. You spoke for all of us who didn't have a camera rolling." That night, Laura officially filed my lawsuit: defamation, assault, mishandling of estate assets. A legal notice was sent to Vera, Celeste, and the board of the Dufresne Foundation. Everything time-stamped, signed, sealed. Walking home, I passed the small church I used to attend as a child. I hadn't been inside it in years, but I paused at the steps, looking through the frosted glass at the familiar glow of sanctuary lights. I didn't go in. I didn't need to. My healing wasn't in prayers whispered behind stained glass. It was in action, in saying things out loud, in standing when they thought I'd crawl. As I turned the corner onto my street, my phone buzzed. Voicemail from Celeste. I hesitated. Then I listened. There was no message, just her breathing. It cracked in the middle, like she was holding in a sob. But she didn't speak. Eventually, the line cut off. I stood on my porch in the dark, one hand on the railing, the other still clutching the phone. There were tears in my eyes, but not for her. For the version of me that waited so long for her voice to say, "I believe you." Inside, I lit a candle, not for grief, but resolve. The next morning, a courier arrived. I opened the envelope in the kitchen, next to the sink still filled with last night's dishes. Vera had filed a counterclaim: character assassination, emotional harassment. My eyes scanned the legal jargon, absorbing it in silence. My pulse didn't spike. I didn't panic. I laughed. It wasn't loud or cruel, just a dry, quiet sound. Because of course she would. Of course she would try to weaponize the very truth that had finally cracked her performance wide open. I looked down at the stack of evidence on the counter, then out the window, where morning light had started to bleed across the trees. If they want a war of truth, I said aloud to the empty kitchen, I'm no longer afraid of the battlefield. By the end of that week, my inbox was a battlefield. Supporters, skeptics, legal inquiries, press contacts. But among the storm of voices, some shouting in defense, others whispering suspicions, one line stood out. Due to recent developments, the library has placed your position under internal review. It came from HR, cold, concise, no empathy, no context, just a link to a meeting invite and a reminder to check policy documentation on personal conduct during public disputes. A week later, they let me go. Official reason? Reputation risk to institutional trust. Unofficially, I had become a liability. The quiet librarian with the calm demeanor had suddenly become the girl from the video, the one suing her sister, speaking to reporters, trending on social media. I didn't argue. What was there to say? What hurt more wasn't the job. It was Beth. We'd been best friends since orientation week at university. Shared apartments, heartbreaks, Thanksgivings. She knew everything. Or I thought she did. The day after I got the library notice, I opened Instagram and saw a post from her account. A photo of her and Vera at a brunch spot I recognized, arms locked in a side hug, captioned, "Family matters are private. Let's choose healing." I didn't call. I didn't comment. I closed the app and let the tears come. Not from betrayal, but the tired, numb ache of realizing you've outgrown someone you thought would always be there. That night, I poured myself a glass of red wine, sat in front of my laptop, and rewatched my own press conference. The one with the two bright overhead lights and the microphone that squeaked when I first touched it. I listened to myself say, "This isn't just my story." And somewhere between the third and fourth playback, I said out loud, I was right to speak. Even if they all leave. The next morning, something unexpected happened. A journalist from a national women's publication, someone I didn't know, but whose work I deeply respected, published an op-ed titled, "The Woman They Tried to Erase, Inara's Story." She'd compiled every piece of evidence, my speech, the voice memo, screenshots, She even tracked down other women who had been bullied or manipulated by Vera, like Sophia, and quoted them with care and context. It wasn't sensational. It was thorough, grounded, devastatingly clear. Within hours, it was everywhere. Shares, reposts, reaction videos. People with platforms 10 times the size of mine were calling out the system that let families silence the quiet ones. A Change.org petition started to reinstate me at the library gained traction, over 15,000 signatures in 3 days. I didn't know what to do with it all, so I did the only thing I knew. I showed up. I accepted an invitation to speak at a community center panel about surviving emotional abuse within families. I helped organize a book drive for survivors re-entering the workforce. I sat with women in small circles and said the words no one had said to me when I needed them. You are not hard to love, you are not crazy, and you are not alone. One night, 2 weeks after the article went viral, I received another voicemail. I recognized the number immediately. Celeste. Her voice cracked before she even finished the first sentence. I failed you. I let her do this to you. I don't deserve forgiveness. She didn't ask me to call back. She didn't try to defend herself. It was the first honest thing I'd heard from her in years. I didn't return the call. Instead, I replied with a text the next morning. It's not about deserving. It's about changing. She didn't write back. Months passed. Seasons shifted. And one morning, nearly a year to the day after Vera dragged me into the rain, I walked down the same street I grew up on, past the church, past the old diner where Dad used to get Sunday coffee, past the family house. It looked the same, mostly. The shutters were freshly painted, the garden trimmed. The air smelled like mulch and blooming rhododendrons. I paused for a moment at the edge of the driveway. Vera stepped out onto the porch, her hair pulled back, phone in one hand, mug in the other. She didn't see me, but I saw the ring, still on her finger, still gleaming. She had kept it, like she always did, with everything that wasn't hers. I didn't flinch. I kept walking. That evening I spoke at a local university event titled Rewriting the Narrative. The room was filled with people who didn't know me, but somehow knew exactly how I'd felt. I stood behind a wooden podium again. No cameras this time, just faces, real ones. And I said, justice doesn't always look like courtrooms. Sometimes it's waking up and knowing you are no longer afraid. I looked out at the women in the front row, 2 of them wiping tears, another nodding, lips pressed tight. They tried to break me, I said, voice steady, but I walked through the rain, and I kept walking. Family can wound us in ways no stranger ever could, but silence is what keeps those wounds alive. Speaking the truth may cost you relationships, but it gives you back yourself. What do you think? Would you choose peace at any price, or risk everything to finally be heard? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story.